As you've just heard, my name is Elicia O'Reilly. I'm a program coordinator at the Japan Foundation. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about myself, Japan, and the Japan Foundation, and where I work doing talk events and lots of other things. I'm usually on the other side of the microphone. I find people to stand up here on stage, so today I'm getting a bit of a taste of my own medicine. But anyway, a little bit of background about me. I went over to Japan in the year 2000 on an exchange and teaching program called the JET program that some of you may be familiar with. I was fresh out of university, hadn't studied anything to do with Japan and couldn't speak a word of Japanese at the time, which begs the question, why go to Japan? Well, the promise of sheer difference, I think, was a very big drawcard for me, and particularly with Australia being so multicultural, I really wanted to understand what it was like to try and live and function in a language and a culture that wasn't your own. And Japan, particularly because the language is just so different, it offered the confronting but also rather tantalising prospect of being able to start from zero and see just how far it was possible to go. And so in the first year, I spent that time teaching English in public schools during the day, and then I'd go home and teach myself Japanese at night. And I found that the more I learned, the more the culture just began to unfold and open up, and revealing more and more paradoxes and complexities. I just couldn't get enough. So the original plan was to stay there for 1 year, and I ended up staying for 11. Oops. But when I came back, obviously I was very, very keen to keep all of that knowledge and those connections alive. And this is where the Japan Foundation comes into my story. So I just want to ask, has anyone heard of the Japan Foundation? Quick show of hands. Oh, that's really encouraging. I like to think of the Japan Foundation as a cultural embassy for Japan. It promotes cultural exchange through things like language classes, exhibitions, events, residencies, grants, and also the Japanese Film Festival. And one of the great things about working at the Japan Foundation is being able to meet and work with other people who are very passionate about Japan, our colleagues, artists, other professionals, some of whom are here tonight, to be able to show different facets of Japanese culture. And what do I mean by different facets? Well, I'll give you an example. I still remember my very first night in Japan. I was staying in a hotel in Shinjuku, which is the hub of Tokyo, and I wandered out without a map just to see what was out there. And I soon found myself smack bang in the middle of Kabukicho, which some of you may know is the most well-known red light district in Japan. It was July. It was swelteringly, drippingly hot, and the streets were narrow, the shops were narrow. Overhead, there's all these electrical wires that are tangled, and everywhere you turn, you're bombarded with unfamiliar smells, neon, people, piles of rubbish bags, blasts of hot air from air conditioning vents. It was just like being on the set of Blade Runner. And, it's really funny because when we think about Japan, generally, the kinds of images that dominate are images like these of restraint, stoicism, tranquility, quiet temples, beautifully sculpted gardens, exquisite kimono. They do exist, very much so. But the noise and chaos of places like Kabukicho are very much Japanese. Some would even argue more so. It's just that you don't really get to see or experience that side unless you go there and see it for yourself. And this brings me back to the Japan Foundation. And so in programming our events at the Japan Foundation, one thing that I'm really keen to do, and I know my colleagues are too, is to show not only the classic elements of Japan that we already know and love, but also to show some of the lesser known sides of Japan, of the culture. And so this is why, if you look back at our programming over the last 12 months, we've had, as you just saw in the previous slide, a traditional music and dance performance, but we've also had, in our Japan in Stereo talk series, an introduction to the avant-garde, minimalist, improvised music scene in Tokyo. And this is why in our gallery we've exhibited a very well-known 18th century woodblock print series, but the current exhibition that we have is a kirigami exhibition by an artist called Kanako Yaguchi, and her name and her medium, I would say, are unknown, or have been anyway, to most of the people here in Sydney. And so these are only a few examples of what we do, but I hope this serves to show that or the philosophy that underpins everything that we do at the Japan Foundation, which is, you know, from our language classes and grant programs all the way through to the online artist directory that we have. And it's through events and initiatives like these, and also by getting passionate people on board to share their stories and perspectives about Japan. We hope to create opportunities for communities to come together, to interact, share ideas, learn about what's happening in their field of interest in another part of the world, and also to give a springboard to start or keep exploring, which I am sure you would agree is what cultural exchange is all about. And anyway, just to finish up, I want to tell you what's coming up next at the Japan Foundation. We've got the film festival, we've got a collaboration with NIDA in the works, and who knows, perhaps an idea from you? No? Anyway, you can if you're interested and want to know more, you can have a look on social media, keep up with us online, come and chat afterwards. It'd be great to hear from you. Thanks very much for listening. It's been a pleasure.